trying to now begin the process of yoga. There is general ideas connected with the practice of yoga. So before we begin the subject proper with regard to Sri Aurobindo's yoga, we will have a general outlook because there is a lot of misunderstanding about yoga in India and outside both. Misunderstanding in the sense that people always tell me, and it always makes me think that they don't understand what they're talking. Whenever they say, all have said the same thing, they always tell me, all have said the same thing. Now, I go back 2000 years and try to put myself in communication with Lord Buddha. Now, Lord Buddha can have said something very relevant 2000 years back. I understand it quite. It is correct for the time and perhaps it has done a great service to humanity. When I come back 2000 years, I don't understand how all could have said the same thing. How all could have said the same thing? It is not. Yes, you say one truth. One truth is well known when you say one truth. But how many are the applications of it and ways of approach? How many do you think are the systems of yoga current only in India? Few hundred, I tell you, few hundred. How does it happen if it is all one? It depends on what is the aim. Then at once the difference will come out. You see, if you just try to look at the problem from the point of view, what is your objective? All I've said the one thing means to attain one truth. What will you do after attaining one truth? Then your answer, your path will depend upon what you will do after attainment, even if the truth is one. Let us take a path in which renunciation is indispensable for realizing the truth. Another path in which acceptance of life is necessary for realizing or after realizing the truth. Now, how will the two tally? You see? And people almost think and actually believe that you can follow any guru. Not at all. Because all is one, all is Brahman. But therefore you don't deal with everyone indiscriminately as if all was equal. All is Brahman, yes, but to treat a stone as a stone, a tree as a tree, mother as a mother, sister as a sister, neighbor as a neighbor, isn't it? I mean, because all is Brahman, your dealing with them does not become indiscriminately, I mean, a mess, if you put it mildly, is it not? Otherwise, it would be a mess. So that in that the distinction has a meaning and a choice has a place. When you say all gurus are the same, if you follow a guru who believes and has in his path renunciation indispensable, and if you come across another guru who accepts life, the result will be you'll be all the time disturbed, I tell you. Because you are connecting two currents which are not making for the same realization in life. One is for accepting life, another is for rejecting life. How will your sadhana, how will your spiritual effort, be harmonious? It will have conflicting currents of spiritual energy. So, you see, when you say one is, all have said the one thing, it always jars on me like anything, I tell you frankly. It really jars on me because it is not true. As it is put, it means we have to do nothing. Generally, when they say all have said the same thing, we need not do anything. Now there is nothing particular to be done. All have said the same thing and same thing is being repeated. Nothing is attained and nothing is going to be attained and we have to do nothing and sit quiet. Those people who believe all have said the same thing generally are folded hand and sit down and all have said the same thing. That we know from times immemorial. These so many are 2000 years, 5000 years. Some in the Veda said somebody in Upanishad said something, and so it is all the same. I had to be very explicit in Benares in 1947 or 48 when I went there for the second time. When one of the members of the Senate actually said that truth is eternal and therefore eternal truth is attained, and we have nothing to add to our spiritual and philosophic life, I had to tell him that if your eternal idea of the eternal is unchanging inertia, then it is already dying. then because you see, it is achalayatana. In words of Tagore, it is achalayatana. A house that never changes. Our is the most marvelous house. No change. Same. Most inconvenient. You can't live in it. But oh, it is wonderful. It is eternal. And you go on with that eternal and putting up with all sorts of difficulties without adjustment. Spirituality or religious life has a double element, an inner core. Even there, as I told you, the objective, when it differs, the path will differ. In religion also, the eternal core of experience is one, the social organization of religious belief and practice and custom and ceremony is another. And this aspect of outer expression of spirituality or religion must adjust itself with historical conditions. If it does not do, well, it dies of inanimity. You can be holding it on and say it is eternal and Sanatana, as they say it in Indian language, Sanatan Dharma. Our old Indian, people who are orthodox say, oh, it's our religion eternal. So I told them, look, this Binaras of yours, which is eternal religion or truth which you refer to, go 200 years back. There was one truth. At that time, there was the, coming in of the English. Go 200 years further, there was the Rajput times where another set of belief and religious life was current. Go 2000 years back, Gautam Buddha was there. Now, which is your eternal religion? Tell me. You think that this has continued without change, but I am pointing out to you that 2000 years to 600, 600 to 400, 400 to 200, 200 to now, you have been changing. Only you want to hold to your ideas, belief, and customs and ceremonial things. This must not change. How will that happen? Unless you will be washed out by the current of time, and what you think to be truth has already become a dead form and it is not living at all. You are sticking to something which is gone already and you think it is living, it is not. This very Benares in which you are living, there were only bullock carts when I first went to Benares in the early 90s, you see, 1900. And when I went second time, all macadamized roads and motor cars were plying. I said, why did you change? You should have continued. You want water taps in Benares. When people come to take a bath in the Ganges, millions of them come hundreds of miles to take a dip in the river. They are living on the Ganges, they want waterworks. All that must change. Only your idea that this is eternal religion must not change. The same thing happens with regard to spirituality and yoga. All have said the same thing. Then why should Sri Aurobindo come? Why should he come and give you something which nobody has given? I claim nobody has given what he has given. What he has given is one truth, yes, but he has shown the application of it. Nobody could have given it. There is nobody's fault. All were not imperfect. They were quite appropriate and relevant to the times they lived. This is now appropriate and relevant to this time. That is what I say. And I give you instance. This is a path in which God and life are commensurate. Now there are hundreds of paths in which God and life can never go together. If you want God, I'll give up life. If you want to live life, don't think seriously of God. You can go on Sunday or Saturday and do something if you like, but don't seriously. Well, now how is that going to square with Sri Aurobindo's outlook? Tell me. Or in India, path of renunciation, Shankar school in which world is reduced to non-existence and unreality and maya and illusion and something non-existent. Now he says that it's the play of the Supreme. We read it this morning, is it not? It's the delight of the Supreme that is expressing itself in the cosmos and world and man and things and in everything. Now how is that going to square? You will follow then a path in which you will gradually withdraw, is it not? If renunciation is necessary, withdrawal will be, or negation or giving up will become necessary. Here, you accept life, but reject the ignorance of life, which is more difficult than giving up life. To renounce is not comparatively so difficult as to accept life for the divine and to reject the ignorance of life, because otherwise divine cannot be expressed in life. Therefore the path will differ. My insistence is that goal being the realization of a supreme truth, the paths always have to differ because of the difference of objective, difference of approach, difference of outlook, difference of what one is going to do, how that is to affect life, to man, society. You see, present life of man, how is it going to affect? Well, on that will depend the path. And therefore, in sharing those paths, for instance, we have taken some few, or one or two ideas only I have taken. Well, that is why putting together of two things which have not the same harmonious, consensus of aim produces in the sadhak, in the disciple, or in the yogi a sort of disturbance. And I have seen many of people unknowingly, ignorantly trying that. Oh yes, you can go to anyone before you decided to take yoga. It's quite open. You can go to thousands of people when you are seeking. When you have found what you are seeking, either by your intellectual conviction, your inner faith, or intuitive understanding of the personality of the Guru, this is my Guru, well, then your path is fixed. Then you can go to other people. You need not look down on anyone. You need not say, we are superior. Nobody is superior. But that's your path and it's fixed. Afterwards, you don't change and go on changing every time, from one to the other. That would lead to disturbances of inner life rather than to a continued slow or fast progress according to one's preparation. You can visit all people, meet everybody, yes, on a plane of equality, on a plane of self-respect. You can listen to what people have to say without deciding to follow, because following is of one path after you have decided to follow somebody. And if you want to change, then completely give up what you have been doing and follow the new light that has come. That also happens in a man's life. It is not that when you taken up one yoga, you cannot change, but then simultaneously do not try to combine two or three types of guidance in yourself, because that, I tell you from practical experience, is something that leads to more disturbance than progress. This is a actual experience which I have seen in half a dozen cases at least, that the effort to combine two or three currents of spiritual force or guidance always creates disturbance in the man who tries to practice yoga, because he doesn't know what is happening. You see, sometimes it's quite unconscious, and he commits the mistake because he is little greedy. He thinks more the merrier. This is the idea, which is not true in spiritual life. You see, let us take everything good from everything. We'll have quite a lot of good collected. You don't collect a lot of good, you collect a lot of disturbance. That doesn't work in spirit. Yes, when you are seeking, you can go to 1000%, because you are not decided. You listen to this, listen to that, understand, read, concentrate, meet, contact, communicate, and have a nice meeting with everybody. And when you decide this is what I want, then your path is fixed. And if you change, you give up that process which you are following and take to the new. That also is open. But at one and the same time, don't try to combine more currents of spiritual, energy than one. That is always good. Even a small current is good because it is, in one sense, homogeneous and safe. Combining one or two is always the creation of a disturbance. So this is an important thing. And for instance, I will give another instance, that people who realize the divine, their one aim was either to merge into the divine, or if there was a passivity about the aim of what to do with the realization, some light of the divine penetrated into the nature of the man who realized. His nature became sattvic, happy, harmonious, peaceful, devotional, goodwill for all, and trying to be sweet and nice and compassionate to all creatures and so on. What you call a saint, you see, saintly life. Now that was one part of expression of a divine realization. But it was not, as it were, that he was trying to bring the divine light into life. You see, it was something that automatically happened, that he had some contact with the Supreme Consciousness now and then, not constant, but now and then. And that changed his temperament into a sattvic temperament, holy, pure, unselfish, goodwill for all, kind, serviceable, trying to do good to everybody and goodwill for all people and so on. That is the attitude which these people take. There were others who if they took to one path, I had dealt with this subject in one of my talks, so I don't repeat. You see, the bhakti, jnana, and karma, and so on. We have done that, so I don't want to repeat it now. But that led to the development of one instrument of nature at the cost of some other instruments of nature. You see, if the Jnana Yogi realized the Supreme in his mind, intellect, or buddhi, he left his emotional and active being with the willpower almost neglected. He didn't care that it was not important to, only indispensable action for life and for maintenance or something, and the rest of it is not important, because what is important is to put the intellect in communication with the infinite and have always the merging of the mind into the supreme, you see. Or the bhakta, devotee developed the emotional being and had always the emotional contact with the divine. And then for that he had to cut himself almost from life. Because to give such a single-minded, devotion to the supreme like that requires you cut off from other activities of life and make all activities, contribute to devotion. So he will do only those works in which devotion will be brought to the prominence, you see. And then his intellect and his willpower remain comparatively in the background, not fully developed or not fully, so to say, fulfilled. Now, in this yoga of which we are talking now or going to talk, the idea is that all the instruments of nature, intellect, emotion, willpower, nervous being, and even the physical being, all are claimants to a fulfillment and divine perfection. It will be taking long, but that is the aim, that no instrument should have precedence. It is not that mind is more important than emotion or willpower is more important than intellect. No. All the natural, constitution of man, every instrument of nature, well, has to approach the divine, reach the divine, and perfect itself in the divine. That is one. Now, in this, you take Yoga of Patanjali. That's one very famous and very well established scientific system of yoga in the world, practically. It's one of the most scientific, like Hatha Yoga. It is systematic, systematized. It's not left to chance. Steps are put down, and you follow it step by step, you get the result. Now, there, if you find, you will see that insistence of Patanjali is all along on mind. Mind is retained at the background. You see, it is yam and niyama. One or the two preliminaries that you have to do is yam and niyama, self-control and purification. These come to control and purification of the physical and the vital and mental also. And then pranayam, pratyahar, dhyan, dharana, and samadhi. These are the steps. You see, you sit down and meditate for a certain time. Then increase the time of meditation gradually. You see, increase. That becomes one, you see, pratyahar. Then more increase, it becomes dhyan. Well, increase of that period becomes dharana. And then that, when you completely merge yourself with the object of your meditation, it becomes samadhi. This is the 6 or 7 steps he lays down. You will see, if you study carefully as we have done, that it lays stress and works upon the basis of mind as a point of reference all the time. Savikalpa samadhi, samadhi with an ideation. One idea only dominant in your mind, not any other idea, but one ideation and pulsation of mind working only on one. It is called Savikalpa samadhi. This is mental state. Nirvikalpa samadhi is the state in which even that one impulse is taken out and mind becomes without any ripple. Now, this is a condition of shunyata or void in the mind, or complete quiescence of the mind, or stilling the mind, if you like to call it. The mind has fallen into a stillness. In that, it may reflect the infinite and have an experience of an infinite consciousness reflected in the still mind. In the Nirvikalpa, the advantage of Nirvikalpa is that mind being completely stilled, it can reflect the supreme truth, the infinite. And that way there is a sort of a, advance in yoga, in the knowledge of the reality, because reality is reflected in the still mind. Now, in the Sutra of Patanjali, if you study, at one place he says that you can attain all the aims of yoga by concentration, ekagrata, as he says, or you can do it by Ishwar Pranidhanadva. By surrendering to God also you can attain these ends. Now in his yogic system, the surrender to God is an alternative. It is well, you can take this path or the other path. It's one of the choices. Whereas in Sri Aurobindo's path, you will find that you cannot do the yoga unless you learn to surrender. Because the aim of this yoga is not to create a state of mind or reach a condition of mind in which mind does not, ideate, or mind does not put forth a pulsation, but effort is to go beyond mind first, and then bring the power beyond mind to transform mind, which is quite a different proposition. Now, this is not known, and therefore, in India, thousands of people always say, Patanjali did everything. Right? Patanjali did everything, and nobody need come afterward. Patanjali laid down a path, certainly, on which you can always go on progressing further and further. That's the way to progress. It is no use trying to bind down yourself to a system simply because it was once and it is useful for the ends that it puts forth. There are other ends also possible. And if they are wider ends, more integral ends, more synthetic aims, and more in keeping with the total fulfillment of man, then we must accept it if our mind is to get at the as complete and full realization of the truth and a more complete fulfillment of man on earth as is possible. Why should it not be? In Patanjali's path, the point of reference is always the mind. And in Sri Aurobindo's path, the effort is to go beyond mind. And then bring the power from beyond mind, and not only that, to transform the mind, emotional being, the nervous being, the physical being, and so on. Now, that was not known before. There is no harm in accepting what our past people did not do. I mean, scientists in the last century did not, have the atom fissuring, but that doesn't mean that they did not do anything. They did a good deal of work in their own times. They did not. That was maximum they could do. Well, here, for instance, now, Vaishnav religion and Tantra, for instance, did a lot of work to bring some light of the higher consciousness into life. But they did not understand the difficulty of the problem. Vaishnavas tried to bring the kingdom of Krishna into life. Delight here, right? Leela of Krishna to be repeated here. The delight world is there, and here they wanted to reproduce the world of delight. Now, reproducing here the world of delight of the Supreme, they made an effort to change life. So everything in life was considered as the play of God. So if you are a merchant and if something happened, you thought it is a play of God, took it as a play of God, and went on like that. Till they found that there is something wrong in this direct application of the Supreme and bringing it into life. Present constitution of nature and the supreme truth that can come down to man, unless and until this nature is changed, it cannot manifest without distortion. This truth they did not understand. Constituted as man is at present, given his mind, his brain, his emotional being, his vital being, his nervous system, and his body, if he tries to bring the truth consciousness, divine consciousness, supreme consciousness through that mind, it will always be distorted, limited, or it will undergo such changes that much of it will be, left out. It cannot be brought without distortion into expression. This is a bitter experience of Tantric and Vaishnava religion because they tried to bring this into life and they failed because they did not know the secret of transformation. The necessity of transformation did not come to them. That you cannot bring the supreme delight into life like that. Then what happened was that they took the promiscuous meeting of man and woman as an occasion for expression of the supreme delight. Said naturally. When your nature is not transformed and delight is the element that is to play, then delight in any form is all right because it is divine. Now you see, that is what happened to Tantra. That is what happened to Vaishnavism. Vaishnavism brought the Leela or the play of Krishna in life. And play of Krishna in life is a free play in which moral considerations have no place. Ethics is not very high in spiritual life, even in India. with the result that whatever truth they tried to bring fell far short of the need of the situation. And I am only pointing out in the preliminary survey, in Buddhism and in Tibetan Tantra also, which are non-theistic or atheistical systems of religion and life, they have evolved a system of yoga. Buddhistic and the Tibetan and some of the other Asian countries on this side, Eastern Asian countries, have evolved systems of yoga. Their systems depend upon development of vital and mental powers. There were Jains, Buddhists, and Tibetan tantrics who did not believe in a god. You see, they were atheistical systems, but they had great occultists in their system because they develop vital and mental powers. And we do admit that mind and vital force has infinite field for evoking new powers in the subliminal, in any number. We are not interested in it. As yogis or seekers, we admit that yes, on the vital level you can have many powers. On the mental level you can have many powers which normally don't are not known to human being. But we are not interested because we are interested in the divine. We are not interested in human powers, either of mental instrument or vital instrument. Well, that is how even the striking powers of some of the Buddhist occultists and the Tibetan tantrics has no attraction for us because our aim is to realize the divine, not to create or bring into existence powers of the mind, occult powers which are extraordinary in some way, and vital powers which are more extraordinary. That has no charm. It is good in its way. It's like science, that you make a discovery and you do something which without your hand and you set a machine to motion, it will do. Well, that's all right. It doesn't carry us further in the solution of man's problem of ignorance. Man remains ignorant even with all the powers that are in his mind or all the powers which he can, clairvoyance, clairaudience, all that included. You can be very egoistic and full of desire. So that doesn't solve man's problem of ignorance, you see. So this survey gives to us a preliminary background of how to approach this yoga. Sri Aurobido's yoga. Well, that brings us to the subject matter proper. And I will begin with one or two things. I think I might fitly begin with Sri Aurobido's. You see, he gives the two sides to this yoga. In this yoga that we propose to practice, or those who propose to practice, there are two powers. Two powers that are working in this yoga. One, the human being that aspires. In the Vedic language, the Agni, the fire from below. See, the fire is in the altar of the heart. The fire of aspiration burns in the altar of human heart. Well, it is the fire from below that calls, and a supreme grace from above that answers. These are the two powers that are at play in this yoga. Two are necessary. In the old yogas, mainly it was supposed that God is static and man has to do everything all along to reach him. If God became active, it was a special grace extended to somebody. In this yoga, the yoga cannot be done to the end alone by the sadhaka. You must evoke and bring into play the divine consciousness. Because divine consciousness from this point of view is dynamic. And it immediately answers and responds to the call of the fire in the heart. So that two forces, a fire in the heart, psychic aspiration in the soul, and response of the divine from above. These are the two forces that we have to count upon in order to make this yoga possible. Now, he says, therefore, what is the part of personal effort, the human effort? Perhaps it is better to read what the mother says, because that aim of yoga she puts down more clearly, perhaps. You see, because there is only half a page and very little. What do you want the yoga for? Ask yourself, she says. What do you want the yoga for? To get power? Ask yourself this question. To attain peace and calm? Answer that question. To serve humanity? None of these motives is sufficient to show that you are meant for this path. The question you have to answer is this: do you want the yoga for the sake of the divine? Is the divine the supreme fact of your life? So much so that it is simply impossible for you to do without it? Do you feel that your very reason of existence is the divine, and that without it there is no meaning in your existence? If so, then only can it be said that you have a call for this path. Next thing that is necessary is aspiration for the divine. That will come to and read about that in Sharonda's writing. The next thing you have to do is to tend this aspiration, to keep it always alert, always awake, always living. And for that, what is required is concentration. Concentration upon the divine with a view to an integral and absolute consecration to its will and to its purpose. This is very clear and small and is concise. Concentrate in the heart. Where will you concentrate? The point of concentration is you point. Concentrate in the heart. Enter into it. Go within and deep and far, as far as you can go. Gather all the strings of your consciousness that are spread abroad. Roll them up and take a plunge and sink down into your heart. A fire is burning there. In deep quietude of your heart, that is the divinity in you. Your true being, hear its voice, follow its dictates. There are other centers of concentration also. One above the crown of the head, another between the eyebrows. Each has its own efficacy and will give you a particular result. But the central being lies in the heart, and from the heart proceed all central movements, all dynamisms, and urge for transformation and power of realization is the one idea. Now, Sri Aurobindo puts the idea of personal effort. What have we to do, a sadhak, a man who wants to practice yoga? How far is his responsibility? In all that is done in the universe, the divine, through his Shakti, means his power, is behind all action. But he is veiled by his Yoga Maya, by his power of, self formation, and works through the ego of the Jiva in the lower nature. He works through the nature of the Jiva in ignorance. In yoga also, it is the divine who is the sadhak. He is the one who is doing the yoga. And he is the sadhana, he is the process. It is his power with her light, with her power, with her knowledge, with consciousness and delight, acting upon the instrumental nature of the sadhak, and when it is open to her, pouring into it with these divine forces that make this sadhana possible. But so long as the lower nature is active, the personal effort of the aspirant remains necessary. Who cannot say that God will do the yoga in me? Yes. The personal effort required is a triple labor of aspiration, rejection, and surrender. An aspiration, vigilant, constant, unceasing, where mind's will, heart's seeking, ascent to the vital being, that is the form aspiration will take. The will to open and make plastic the physical consciousness and nature. Rejection. Rejection of the movement of the lower nature. Rejection of mind's ideas, opinions, preferences, habits, constructions, so that the true knowledge may find free room in silent mind, rejection of the vital nature's desires, demands, cravings, sensations, passions, selfishness, pride, arrogance, lust, greed, jealousy, envy, hostility to the truth, so that the true power and true joy may pour from above into calm, large, strong, and concentrated vital being. Rejection of the physical nature, stupidity, doubt, disbelief, obscurity, obstinacy, pettiness, laziness, unwillingness to change, tamas or darkness, inertia, so that the true stability of light, power, and delight may establish itself in a body growing always more and more divine. Even the body has to participate in the process of growth. Surrender of oneself and all one is and all one has, and every plane of consciousness and every movement to the divine and the Shakti, the power of the divine. Well, this the central process. The central idea of the yoga that it is for the sake of the divine that the yoga is to be pursued. There is a personal part, effort to be fulfilled, and that effort takes the form of aspiration, rejection, and surrender. And as mother puts it, the center of concentration is the heart. It is the heart center on which you concentrate and go deep into the heart, identify with this inner soul, and follow the dictate and the guidance of the inner being in the formulation of the sadhana, in the path of the sadhana, because that is in contact with the supreme power. Surrender to the supreme power also does the same thing. It brings the supreme power to act on our nature, on our being, and guides the being more quickly than our mind or our will could have guided. Surrender renders the action of the divine power possible in the human individual. If man does everything himself, it takes pretty long time. But if he can surrender to the supreme power, then the work for him can be quickened, can be, you see, much more accelerated because the power that is working is conscious power, power that knows the need of the seeking individual more than his ignorant mind or his own being can know. That is the nature. When we say supreme or divine, what we mean is that the divine, the guru or the guide, knows ourselves more than we can know ourselves. Otherwise, there is no point in seeking guidance. You see, one who guides is supposed, and certainly very often he does know more than the one whom he guides, because otherwise he cannot guide. So the supreme power knows the need of the disciple more than perhaps his conscious mind is able to formulate to itself. And with that, we can. Well, when you decided to follow a path, he says that there should be no content for anybody. You may choose your path, but don't think that because others don't follow the same path, therefore they are see, they have no chance. God is working in so many thousands of ways, and each way has its own place. So you see, all path is for the divine. You only have chosen your own, and you say that you have chosen your own on your own ground. But there is no reason to. You can discriminate and decide by discrimination without, contempt or looking down. That is not necessary. Say contempt for others is out of place, especially since divine is in all. So you must allow the divine freedom to do something else than what he has made you to like to do. And that's an important attitude, because easily when one has taken the path, it always becomes, that this is very, very good, very true, that is true. But then what now is being done by other people, it is their way of looking at it. And You can persuade, you can understand, you can say that is my choice, and you can give your reasons for your choice at best. You can say why you chose. Well, you say if you have no reason, you say, well, there is no reason for love. Love is like that. You see, why do you love? Well, it is because causeless. There is no cause. And if you have a reason or intellectual rationale, you present it. Here is the rationale. This is why I am convinced of it. If it appeals to you, you can follow it also. But there is no reason to look down upon anything. But our attitude is that humanity cannot grow out of its limitations by ordinary means adopted by human mind, politics, social reform, philanthropy, etc. These can only be temporary or local palliatives. The only true escape is a change of consciousness, a change into a greater, wider, and purer way of being, and a life and action based upon that change. This implies no contempt, but preference of the only effective means over others which have been found ineffective. That attitude we must take. This is one important thing we must bear in mind, you see. In the practice of yoga, there are people who say that you must understand everything. And one objection very often put forth is Yando is very difficult. He is very intellectual. It is a very funny incident I'm reminded of. You see, I was talking in Bombay to an audience at one night, and one postgraduate student came up and said that you see, Sri Aurobindo is written in such a difficult style. I said, but why didn't you go and advise him to write simply? Well, no, but you see, I said, look here, what do you want to imply? You want to imply that he doesn't know what to write or what? No, no, but you see, it is very difficult. I said, that shows your mind is not capable. That only shows you have not capacity to concentrate and understand. That's all. It is meant for mind. And there are people who do understand. And people who are not his devotees. From England, I showed him letters from an English lady who said that when I read, I am absolutely. She was a student of philosophy, of course. But she was not a follower of yoga or anything of the kind, but she did marvelous writing. So I said, there are people who actually understand what do you mean by saying it is, why it is written like that. First of all, your attitude is wrong. What you must do is, when a great light has given something, you must say, oh, it is very difficult. You must say, I am fool. What's the meaning of saying it is difficult? It is meant to be what it is. It cannot be in any other form. How can it be? A poet used to say, oh, why did you write poetry like that? But then it is not poetry, then he will not be himself. If he wrote differently, then he won't be Sri Aurobindo. Sri Aurobindo can write only in that way. What's the use of doubting the value of what a man like him has written? You must only say, well, I am not capable and it's rather too much for me. That's all right. There's no harm. But to say as if we could sit on judgment over it and say, oh, this, if it was easy, I would have jumped at it. I don't, I told him, I told that young man, do you mean to say that if Sri Aurobindo simplified his writing, you will be immediately able to follow? You are simply deterred by the difficulty of understanding? If it becomes simple, will you follow? Well, I will make it simple, I said. It is a hazard, but I will take the hazard and I will make it absolutely simple that man in the street can understand. Then will you promise that you are now just ready to take the jump? Look, what he says is the aim of life is to realize the divine because all comes from the divine. Therefore, it must be logical for life to seek the divine. Therefore, seek the divine. When you have attained the divine, pray to the divine to transform your nature because without transformation, you will not be able to express the divine. When your nature is transformed by the divine, then express the divine will in your life. That is our highest fulfillment. That's all that Sri Aurobindo says. Now, are you able to follow? Come. This is all I give you in a tabloid form. This is all that he says. Come. Very simple. There is no word that you have to refer to dictionary. It's all right there, isn't it? Modern mind is complex. I told that boy, who was a postgraduate student, I say, you are asking about rebirth. Why rebirth take place? Why a man is born rich and another poor and all this? Is it a simple question? That a simple answer will satisfy your modern mind. And even when an answer is given, do they accept it? They are so much full of their mental pride and vanity that even when a truth is given, they are not prepared to accept it. I know it by experience. You see? So, mind is not an instrument that wants to be convinced of the truth, you see. It's not so easy. A seeking mind is a rare mind. An intellect which is sincere is very rare. Even in the world of so-called intellectuals, they are all governed by their vital desires and ambitions. 9 out of 10 are seeking careers and money and some place in somewhere in public and so on. That's all the intellectuals are doing. They're not seeking the truth. So he is giving answer to that we must understand everything intellectually in yoga. Well, it is here in those words that I'm giving you. In yoga, practice of yoga, mental theories are of no fundamental importance. So if you don't understand, you are not prevented from following yoga. For the mind forms or accepts theories that support the turn of its being. That's all that the mind is doing. What is important is the turn and call for the truth in you. That is important. In the practice of this yoga, capacity is not enough. That you are capacity to start the yoga. There must be also a will to seek after the divine and courage and patience in following the path. Fear is the first thing that must be thrown away. And secondly, inertia of outer being. And I find that here, the inertia of the outer being is very strong. Fear is not so much. You see, the current routine is such that one feels that it has a dictatorial power. The current routine seems to be as if that is the ruler. And the individual is somebody who says, well, how can I wriggle out of this? This is, this is a groove made, and in the groove one is running, and how to get out of the groove? That is a problem. Well, it's a problem. It is something to be tackled slowly, gradually. It is a slow growth. It can't be done in a day, you see. And in this yoga, there must be a push for radical and total change. It is not by taking up a mental attitude that this can be done, or even by any number of inner experiences which may come to you, which leave your outer being as it was. It is this outer man who has to open, to surrender, and to change. So that there must be a push for a change in the being. In your work and in your acts, you must do the same as you do in your concentration. Open to the mother, put them under her guidance. Call in the peace, the supporting power, the protection, and in order that they may work, reject all the wrong influences that might come in their way by creating wrong, careless, or unconscious movements. That is what your more effective way of doing the sadhana is, that in the work that you are doing in practical life, there also you do just what you do in your sadhana, in your concentration or dhyana. When you sit down for meditation, what you do is to open to the higher light and seek its guidance, put yourself under the protection, is it not? In life also, whatever you are doing in practical life, there also open to the mother, put all the situation or conditions under her guidance, call in the peace and the supporting power and protection, and so that they may work and reject everything that comes as contrary influence, wrong influence, which creates difficulty in the way. Reject what is coming in the way and ask for the presence, guidance, and protection, even in actual life. And you will see that if the opening is there and sincerity is there, probably it will work. I didn't give the instance of a lady doctor friend of ours who was a lady disciple. She came to Pondicherry and was very much in distress, and she was trying to do the hospital work with a very right attitude. You see? And she told me that she finds it very difficult, and the staff is non-cooperative, and the nurses and people on whom they have to depend. Well, they are not at all with the same attitude. So I said, look, you don't be despondent. What you have to do is to put in the work the same attitude that you do when you do your meditation. She was not, she didn't know, she was not conscious that this could be done. So I told her, you try the same thing that you do in meditation, you open to the divine power. Mother's presence you feel here, for instance, when you meditate. There is a presence all the time, you can feel it if you are conscious. Well, if you are not, you have to open to it and you will feel it. So open to that consciousness and then allow it to work in you. And when you deal with the people, don't deal with them, yourself, but allow this power and influence to deal with them. You talk to them, but you know that you are not important. What is important is the influence that must work on them, and they may be disobedient. They may not do what you say. It doesn't matter. You don't get disturbed because now you are not working. It is that power. You are left the responsibility to that power, isn't it? So you get out of the responsibility and the strain and the why and this all that tension you need not have. You simply do and leave it at that and see. Next time when she came, she said it has much improved now. They are doing everything. I said yes. See, it has worked because the power is in them also. They are not without the divine presence. After all, man's nature is ignorant, but he is divine. A man may be ignorant in his nature, but he is fundamentally divine. And when you put the divine influence, it is the divine in him that will gradually have to respond. If not today, 2 months, 1 month, 8 days, 20 days, 1 year, it is bound to work. Supposing it does not work, then either that man will go away or your field of work will change. You don't know. The power can work out if it is necessary. If it is so necessary, and when you have learned the lesson from opposition, well, either the man will change and everything will be quite all right, then things will go harmoniously. If not, either the man who is not willing to change will leave the place. He might think of going away and say, this is not a good place. Then you get rid of the difficulty. Or you might find another field which is better. So you say, well, I'm now in another field which is not inflicted with the same difficulties. So these things can happen. It's not that one should expect, but the ways of working of the supreme power are so various that you cannot predict. The only one thing is to open oneself to it, put the influence, put the protection and power, and leave it to work. And watch dispassionately or impersonally what happens. Well, I think we can have to stop there, or shall I proceed further? Perhaps it is better to stop tonight. 9 o'clock, no? Is it 9 or?
Yes, I have just 2 minutes after 9.
Say anything about current yogas in India and here, but I have noticed, see, some people have a vital power to evoke the vital center in other people, you see. And then when the men are not experienced or in turn towards only the light, they accept the guidance, and the result is the vital in them is awakened before they are ready for dealing with the vital. See, it is a very complex play and it is not as simple. And they think they are doing yoga. Of course, they are doing yoga, but at the wrong end, and probably they are getting more difficulties than progress because the vital has awakened in a condition when they themselves are not prepared to deal with the vital difficulties, because when vital awakens, it is a very difficult plane. It's one of the most crucial planes of sadhana. And to awaken that first, no real serious yogi would do that. But these yogis have got some power like that, and they give anybody, oh, you do like that, it will be all right. It's all right for one to do like that, but when the vital in the other man is awake, well, he is, is left to himself to deal with the difficulties afterwards. It is not easy. It is not easy to. You see, that is Ramakrishna saying there is very true, that one should have the, he says that there was a public road, and if somebody is doing nuisance on the public road, if you go and tell, then you say, get out. You are a citizen, I am a citizen. What do you mean by telling me not to do what I am doing? But if a policeman comes Then he takes guy, he says that this won't do now because he's authorized, he carries authority. Now, in order to give guidance to other people, one should have that guidance, you see, that stamp given to him. That is good. Otherwise, it's not good to take up spiritual guidance. Intellectual guidance you can give, subjects you can treat, philosophy, psychology, comparative religion, comparative myths, and all kinds of that is good. There's nothing there. But taking up guidance of people in spiritual life is a responsible task, much more responsible in the sense that it deals with the inner life of man, and you know that you are taking up a responsibility. It's not easy. And then you must have broad shoulders to bear the weight. It is not as if it is a very pleasant task, you see. It's good that people haven't got disciples, and serious gurus who have disciples know what it is to have disciples. It is to add weight to one's own, luggage. And that is why gurus who are serious always see to it that they give the guidance to the disciple himself so that he may be able to tackle his own problem. And he will help him also, but to tackle it himself, because that way is the shortest cut. You cannot have the guru all the time coming over to you and taking up all your life and doing all that is required in you. Yes, he does it through you because he's identifying with himself with your own being. The guru, in fact, is your own highest being, your own highest conception embodied. That is your guru. And he helps you by that identity. He helps you by that oneness. You can't expect him to go, all over your nature and take cognizance of if he has 1,000 disciples, well, he will have nothing to do. He can't tackle, in fact, isn't it? He can only tackle by an inner process. It is like you switch off this line, the whole line is gone. You switch off another, whole line is gone. Like that. That's the way. It is done like that. From another point of view, it's not at all human guidance, you see. It is from a plane above, and from the plane above, many things are done without much difficulty. It's all right. You put your difficulty, and immediately the solution is there. It is not done by mind, not at all. And these guides who take up the vital plane and have some capacity in the vital, well, their vital capacity is limited. It's not divine vital anyway. So they can't tackle the difficulties when they come to a crisis in a disciple's case. They do.
Real guru is in contact with the higher power and
Yes,
allows the higher power to work.
work through him, yes. And that is why surrender to the guru is necessary, because that is the easiest way of surrender to the divine. Because that guru is embodied in person of a human being, and he is available and you feel him as if he is near and so on. Otherwise the divine feels very distant, you see, to the normal human being. But in the guru the divine seems embodied, and not only seems but is embodied. That is the presence of the guru. The guru is not the man at all. The guru is the one that you feel in the guru. That recognition is either, as I told you, as a result of inner affinity or intuition or inner recognition or intellectual conviction. It can come in any way. It can come even by way of apparent opposition, like Vivekananda, you see, who goes to him and puts a challenge, and he's conquered or he's won over. You see.
Now, didn't Aurobindo also say that in some cases it is possible to contact the teacher within
Yes,
directly,
yes,
not
yes,
with
yes. In fact, all gurus are the same. This is one of his writings, you see. And read that. Where is it? Surrender to the guru is said to be the surrender beyond all surrenders, because though through it you surrender not only to the impersonal but also to the personal, not only to the divine in self but to the divine outside yourself. You get a chance for surpassing of the ego, not only in by retreating into yourself where the ego does not exist, but in your personal nature where ego is the ruler. It is a sign of the will to complete surrender to the total divine. When you surrender to the Guru, it means there is a will to complete surrender to the total divine. And he quotes Gita that Samagramma Manushim Tanumashritam. He says there are people who are ignorant and they look down upon me when I have taken up the human body. And when I have taken up the human body, if we can surrender, then that is the surrender also to the body, so to say. In a certain sense, there's a more total surrender. Of course, it must be a genuine spiritual surrender for all this to be done. It must be a genuine surrender and not a, surrender can be also fake. One can always pretend that one has surrendered. That is coming next time for us tomorrow. All the gurus are the same. There is another quotation of his, you see. The one guru that is supreme. Because all are the one divine. That is the fundamental and universal truth. But there is also a truth of difference. A divine dwells in different personalities with different minds, teachings, influences, so that he may lead different disciples with their spatial and need, characteristic, and destiny by different ways to the realization. All are the same is a spiritual truth, but you cannot convert it indiscriminately into action. You cannot deal with all persons in the same way because they are the one Brahman or infinite. Well, that's what I told in the beginning. This is his own words I am quoting. Yes, it is a complex thing. You see, I don't say that people do it purposely, but it's a act of, you know, want of understanding, and then you can't do what they understand. I mean, you can't. Then it involves so much of loss of the truth that rather one is appalled at the way in which it is. It only promotes inertia. This is my very, very clear observation. It promotes inertia. That therefore nothing is to be done. It's all right. God is all right in the world. Everything is good in the world, and God is happy in heaven, and all is well with the world. Now, in one sense, it is. It is all right. In another sense, even the effort is necessary, even the aspiration is necessary, intensity is necessary. All the elements are necessary. Hmm.
And pretty well, this is a common quotation that the worst sinners make the greatest saints because when they really come to God, they are
Well,
so.
I think I will quote Anatole France if you like.
Yeah.
Do you know Anatole France?
Yeah.
One of his writings, I think it is Crime the Sylvester Bonner. Crime of Sylvester Bonner, translated in English also. It is a story dealing with the life of a academic French academician who adopts a daughter. You see, and then she is put in a pensionnat, you see, and this orphanage, you see, where the girls have, and then the rules of the orphanage, and so much fun he makes about it, and so on. There, this occurs. There is a priest, and he is very much against Roman Catholic religion. This Anatole France, that way, you see, and pours ridicule. I mean, it's not right, but he's a clever man, you see, so he does it very cleverly and subtly. So he introduces a priest who is a rake and a drunkard, practically, you see, and then makes him talk philosophy in such a way that ridicules some of the very highest concepts of, Roman Catholic religion. So one day he's telling a young man, there is a young man whom he teaches Greek, this priest. He knows Greek and Latin very well. He is well read. That way. Though he's a rascal, he's well read rascal, I mean. So he teaches him Greek and Latin. And in return, that boy has got a boulangerie, you see, this, what is called bakery. So he feeds him there. The exchange is that he teaches him Greek and Latin, and as he has got the boulangerie, well, he feeds him there. He eats there and teaches him Greek. So one day while taking food, he said, "Look here, my boy, I'll tell you some great truth today." "What is it?" he said. "You know, in the greatest saint is hidden this stuff of sinner is hidden the stuff of the greatest saint. Why? He asked him. Why? Because repentance is in proportion to the sin. You see, the enormity of the sin evokes greater repentance. And the greater the repentance, the greater is the stuff of the saint, isn't it? Therefore, I told you that in the greatest sinner is contained the stuff of the greatest saint. We had a ridiculous way of putting things. But this is true that man who is turned towards what people call bad life, evil life, or a wrong way of life, if the will turns and it is sincere turn, then the turn is about turn, you see, immediate. It is not that he must go through step by step, no, not at all. St. Augustine is an instance in point. In India, there are hundreds known like that. That they have been very bad, but 1 minute, 1 instant it comes and he takes an about turn and it doesn't then require that he must go. It is a complete turnover, you see, from that time. There were two robbers in Orissa who, when one holy man was going, heard him speak the name of the Lord and they got converted. They left their profession and everything. They themselves became afterwards saints. Jagai Madai. It's well known in India. Historically, 15th or 14th century. And there are many such instances. Bilva Mangal is another well-known story where the man was a drunkard and all kinds of vice, addicted to vices. And then when he got a rebuff one day, well, he completely took the about turn and well, afterwards he became a saint and wrote very fine, hymns of prayer, which are very well known and become very popular. It's a turn of the will. Therefore, moral value or moral values have a secondary place in spiritual life. Because a man is not conforming or capable of conforming to moral values, it doesn't mean that he has no spiritual capacity. He can have spiritual capacity simply by turning his power that is going downwards, taking an upward turn. That's all. And that only proves that moral values are good for society. Necessary. They are a stage through which the aspirant has to pass. But they are not definitive in the sense that if a man is not good today, therefore he is spiritually unfit. No spiritual man will admit that. No spiritual man will admit. Because he is always looking upon the divine element in him as indispensable and something that cannot be ignored. You cannot ignore the divine in the man. And divine is capable of complete transformation. So he always keeps a room for complete transformation for the last man.
And also, Purani, that the sinner probably has a great deal of experience in suffering that also would bring a great capacity for understanding, wouldn't it?
He may not suffer, only he has to admit that the way is not desirable or he gets a disgust or a sort of a dislike for that life. Sinner, when he is a sinner, is not suffering, he is enjoying it. Rather, when when he takes the bottle, he is happy that he is drinking, and he's quite happy that he drinks. To get at a point where he gets a disgust or a sort of repulsion or an idea that this is not worth, or that he is under some clutch of some power or force or habit which he would like to throw off, or some way awakening comes by miracle. It doesn't come by a known process, but when it comes, it is like that, instantaneous turning. And then the same power that was going either downhill, well, takes the upward turn. Yes, why not?
But don't you think sometimes there is suffering when they turn because they feel the enormity of their sin?
They can also. Yes. Yeah.
Divine.
Yes. Yes. this the psychic being does in them, really speaking, you see. It is a psychic suddenly in a, you see, it is a, what you call the slit of light, photographic plate, there is a slit of light, you know, between two, such, there is a slit of light. Well, through that, it is a psychic acting in one instant like that, showing to the whole outer nature how much the divine has been outraged. That's all. And immediately the whole nature, if he is, meant or destined to change, will immediately take about turn. It is a psychic intervening in the form of divine grace. It's a one slit, small slit of light through which the chink the whole light penetrates. Because the whole nature is dark, full of, darkness and so on. And this feeling of, what he has done is not constantly present. It's only at an instance and a decisive instant, if it awakens in him, the inner being, then this feeling can become a decisive factor in his transformation. It becomes decisive.
How does one get rid of this sense of the impurity that goes with that?
Impurity is to be first, so the shortest way and the most effective way is to separate oneself from impurity and not to accept them as one soul. They are all in nature and not in the self.
From personal experience, I'd like to say something about this. When I was when I was a young boy, I tried to go to church and accept Christianity, and as much as I tried, I couldn't. I tried to believe, but I couldn't tell myself that I believed when I didn't inside. So after I got 15 or 16 years old, I finally said, okay, I don't believe, now I admit it, there is no God. And from that point, 10 or 15 years, I lived the life of doing what I thought I wanted to do. But I suffered. While I was doing these things that, as you say, is bad or evil, I didn't enjoy doing them. I was searching for something to enjoy, but I never found it, and because I never found any fulfillment, I was always suffering. But when I finally got tired of all this suffering and I began to see that there was a God, I began to see how God worked. And as you say, the change comes. It wasn't of a sudden, but there was no remorse or feeling of sin for the things that I had done, because these things that I had done brought me to God.
Yeah, they were necessary perhaps for your growth.
So I was, I've never had any regrets.
No, I don't think that regret is a necessary part of change. No. Regret is too much when you are weighed down by ethical and moral considerations only. Otherwise, what has passed was perhaps necessary to bring you to what you are.
When I said there was no God, I said to myself, if there is one, let him come to me. Let him tell me that there is a God.
Yes.
Like he does the people in the Bible. Let him tell me. And when he does this, then I'll believe. And then I'll do what he says.
Yes. And it is that which made you suffer all along.
Right.
Because one part of you was open. You see, some part you kept a reservation that if it is, well, it was acting all along not to make you happy. You see, to see that you are not happy. That is how it does. It actually does like that. That's the correct thing. Until the part change, and then it begins a flowering out of the nature, you see.
Transformation really is like
Can you ask that?
Well, no, when I asked was when I said there is no God. I tried to believe in Christianity. Now I do believe at this time. I do believe in. I don't believe in all the conceptions of Christianity. I mean the practice of it today, but I believe in the originality of it. But at the time,
That is a fine chapter in Mother's Conversation of the Mother. There is a talk on religion which I would like you to read. It is very revealing. What is exactly the nature of religion? 10th talk. When you have time, you go through that. It's very interesting. 10th talk in Mother's Conversations, you see. It is very fine because it deals with Buddhism, Christianity, and other religions, you see, and gives the place of how she looks at the problem. Very fine. One can be in 1 hour or half an hour reading. Go to the spiritual truth in all religions. You see, experience of the truth of religion. In all religions you find. And Sri used to say that they would have realized the divine in any religion. Because it is their call that takes them through that path, whatever path is there. So they would have reached all right in any form. And it is not the religion that has been responsible for the reaching the divinity. Now, that is very true. In every religion, there are people who have realized the truths and try to get maximum benefit out of the teachings of the original, founder.